Okay, here we go, and we'll start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. Our State Representative, Logan Nicole, will lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to introduce the Select Board, and then as bring us up to speed on what's going on at the State House. But up front, we have Liz Carl, our Town Treasurer. We have Jeff Chase, Diana Garrow, Mark Turco, and Carol Garrow-Woolley. Come on. Okay. And Caitlin. And I don't know who's sitting here.
The boss.
The boss. Okay. Okay, so Logan, would you like to lead off and share with us what's going on in Montpelier?
Yeah. You want me to over there?
With the mic, that mic should be live.
Hello? Hello? Am I going? All right. So Logan Nicole, I'm your state representative. I represent Ludlow, Mount Holly, and Shrewsbury. I'm from Ludlow. So the legislative session, it starts in January. It runs until like the middle of May usually. This week. I feel like I probably say this every year, and so I'm sure you've all heard this a lot. But this week we are off. This is like our 1 week off in the middle of session to kind of regroup for ourselves, and so that we can come to town meetings. Next week is what we call crossover, and so next week is like it's a term of art, but it basically just means that any bill that's going to go forward this year needs to pass out of the committee that it starts in by the end of next week, by the end of next Friday. And then it needs to pass through, the money committees, the tax committee and the appropriations committee by the end of the following week. If it hasn't done that, then we decide that it hasn't met crossover and it's not, something that can go forward this year. It's just kind of it's something that we do to ourselves just to make sure that we're not working on a bill for too long, and then the Senate, the other side doesn't have, or to make sure that they still have enough time to address the bill as well. And so you may hear a lot more about bills right now just because they are, passing one chamber, either the House or the Senate right now. And then, then they have to go through the entire process that they've gone through to this point, for the rest of the session until May. So I am on the House Commerce and Economic Development Committee. We work on things related to commerce. We work on a lot with, we put a lot of time into like forgivable loan programs and support for nursing and support for other critical occupations that we felt are lacking in the state and don't have, the training or workforce training and things like that. This year we've been working almost exclusively on a bill around data privacy. So we're talking a lot about how companies are allowed to, harvest your data from your phones and from, any device that you use online. And then they're allowed to just sell that to other companies and just kind of pass it around back and forth. And so we've been talking a lot about that right now and how we can kind of regulate and control that. Obviously, the big issues right now are, the budget, education spending, education financing. I definitely welcome more conversation about that, outside of here. You can always call me. I usually put my number in the chit chat. I've had some health issues, personal health issues the last couple months, so I missed the chit chat deadlines, which I really am disappointed in myself that I do that because I really like writing those articles. But I always put my cell phone number in there, 802-345-8430. You can call me anytime. I also put an email that I reply to better than my ledge email, which is just replogannnicole@gmail.com. Definitely reach out to me anytime. Call me, email me, text me. Yeah, I think the education stuff is a little probably too much to get into right now before you go into your town meeting. But, I think the education financing issue is just a really big one for us to tackle this year. There's no good answers. It's going to be really hard. I think we're all property owners. We're all also, feeling this burden. I'm doing what I can to work with the education committee and the Ways and Means Committee to find ways that we can lessen the burden. But, we created this mess. We used a lot of ARPA money over the last few years to kind of soften education spending and make it artificially lower than it should have been. And so now that the ARPA money's run out, we're kind of hitting this big cliff. And there's just no great way to stop that. A lot of it has to do with health insurance. I think, my own personal opinion, if we had a better handle on health insurance in the state, then this wouldn't be as bad for things like this, but that's, just another factor that plays into all this. But yeah, obviously I welcome questions. Like I said, call or text me anytime. And yeah, I'm so grateful, as always, to serve you in Montpelier, and reach out if there's anything I can do.
Thank you, Logan. We have time, or we took time for the update from Logan. Any questions or anything else would be, you'd reach out to Logan by phone, or if he's around at the end of the meeting, but we don't really want to make time at the beginning of the meeting for that. Thanks again, Logan. Appreciate it very much. Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, Robert's rules are the order of business, except where Vermont law takes precedence. Motions, discussions, remarks must be addressed to the moderator, not to other individuals personally, and confine them, please, to the matter at hand. Come up to the microphone. You may have a loud voice. That means people can hear you. It does not mean that they can understand you. Please come up and use the microphone for your comments. Vermont state law prohibits consideration of articles that have not been warned. Binding action cannot be taken under other business. My role as moderator is to help you accomplish the business that you intend to do. Please raise your hand if you don't understand what is happening, or if you think that what is happening is wrong and you want to do something but don't know how to proceed. Only registered voters may vote at the town meeting, as well as speak at the town meeting. Others may speak, however, they do so with the approval of the body. If you want to speak, please come up to the microphone and raise your hand and identify yourself for the record. Article 12 is other business. Right, that's Article 12. Now, this is a town meeting, so there's no provision in our agenda to discuss school matters. When we reach Article 12, and I'll remind you, I'd entertain a motion to suspend the rules to allow discussion of school business, in other words, business not specific to the town. Now, that's your decision. I'm looking for a motion. You'd vote to allow it, or you'd vote to say no thanks, limit it to the town, and get us out of here. Even if you vote to do that, I imagine you could talk after the meeting. But that's how we'll be doing things, because I know the school budget and the bond issue is a major thought at the forefront of a lot of people's minds. Okay, the warning for the annual town meeting of March 4th, 2024 and March 5th, 2024. The legal voters of the town of Mount Holly, Vermont are hereby notified and warned to meet at the Mount Holly School at 7 p.m. in the evening, Monday, March 4th, to act on the following articles, 2 and 12. Article 1, on March 5th, to vote by Australian ballot at the Mount Holly Town Office. Polls will be open from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. to vote on the following articles, 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. Articles may be discussed on Monday evening, this evening. Article 1, to elect all town officers as the law permits. That's an Australian ballot issue. It's also an issue for discussion. Are there any people running for office in the town that would like to introduce themselves and say a few words? Seeing no hands, we'll move to Article 2. And that is to act on the town officers' report. I need a motion for that. Looking at, yes, Fra Devine, Francis Devine makes a motion, seconded by Bob Herbst. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So the ayes have it. So we have accepted the town officers' report. Article 3, does the town vote the following budget for fiscal year 2024-2025 to be raised by tax? The general fund, $539,690. B, the highway fund, $460,700. The total of A and B to be voted on by Australian ballot is $1,390,000. Is there any discussion on Article 3? Seeing none, hearing none, we'll move to Article 4. Does the town vote $75,000 for the Asset Equipment Fund for the fiscal year 2024-2025 to be raised by tax? That is an Australian ballot item. Is there any discussion on Article 4? Hearing none, we'll move to Article 5. Does the town vote to the Mount Holly Volunteer Fire Department Incorporated an operating budget of $84,600 for the 2024-2025 fiscal year and vehicle replacement fund of $65,000 for a total of $149,600 to be raised by tax? That's Australian ballot. Is there any discussion on that? Hearing none, we will move to Article 6. Does the town vote $12,000 for the Mount Holly Town Library to be raised by tax? Australian ballot. Is there any discussion on that? Yes.
I'm Joe Galbraith. I'm the town librarian, and I would just like to start off a little bit by saying the library is an important part of community infrastructure, almost like our roads or anything else. And I would like to thank the town committee for their continued support of the library. I'd also like to thank all of our volunteers, and I'd also like to thank the board. And just to remind everybody that it's your library, and everything that we have in it is free of charge for you to come and use as you wish. So again, thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Joe. If there's no further discussion, we will move on to Article 7. Hearing none, we'll move to Article 7. Excuse me, Dennis. Is this to an article, Dennis, or is this a point of privilege?
Turn the mic around, please.
I bet you can hear me.
No, microphone. We want to understand you.
Spin the mic around, Dennis, so you can face the public.
Still think you can hear me. So this is about the Mount Holly Chit Chat, who's having their 50th anniversary this year. And we have been pleased with the town's support over the years. We did absorb the news flash a couple of years ago, and we were glad to do that and continue to use it. The funding is mainly because there's an annual fee now, as we've expanded the Chit Chat, or the people using it and stuff, the newsflash mainly. There's an annual fee, and of course, printing costs are up, and the equipment that we use is also a concern. So we're asking for the $2,000 that we've asked the last several years. And this will be read at this next select board meeting for them to act on. A resolution in recognition of the 50th anniversary of the Mount Holly Chit Chat. This resolution marks the 50th anniversary of the Chit Chat, providing information to our community about events and services offered by the Town of Mount Holly Select Board. Whereas, this month of March marks the 50th anniversary of a group that met on March 10, 1974, to organize a monthly newsletter called the Mount Holly Chit Chat. Whereas the first edition was distributed on March 15, 1974, to some residents of the town and has continued to be a source to get the word out about what is happening in our area. Whereas it is through the efforts of Lucille Priest, Gladys Hudak, Betty Wheelock Merlin, and Miles Richards that we receive what we need to know. Whereas some of the early contributors of news were Stella Beauchesne, Hazel Devereaux, Jerry George, Pat Morton, John Nah, Garfield Potter, and Miles Richards. Whereas several volunteer editors have worked to get the newsletter out, it began with Lucille Priest and continues today with Diana Garrow, our longest-serving editor. Whereas these editors included local news, announcements, meeting minutes, provided lists of businesses and advertisements. Whereas the advertisement revenue helped to cover the printing expense, and the town's voters have approved some funding with increasing costs, which brings the Chit Chat to each Mount Holly household, plus many others. Whereas for many years, the locally owned Express Copy printers has continued to provide excellent service to make sure the Chit Chat is printed and delivered on time. Whereas the Mount Holly News Flash, started by Randy Bixby, merged with the Chit Chat in 2020, and its producer, Kevin Plew, providing daily updates. Whereas the Chit Chat board, consisting of editor and treasurer Diana Garrow, president Dennis Devereaux, vice president Dave Venter, secretary Tara Isidro, and directors Chris Pratt, Kevin Plew, and Heather Garrow, is committed to make sure that the Chit Chat continues for many more years. Be it further resolved that copies of this resolution be presented to the Chit Chat board, the Mount Holly Community Historical Museum, and posted in the town clerk's office. Thank you.
Well, that pretty much wraps up the comments on Article 7. I'll read it. Does the town vote $2,000 for the Mount Holly Chit Chat to be raised by tax? That is an Australian ballot item. Is there any additional discussion on that? Hearing none, we'll go to Article 8. Does the town vote the following for community and social services totaling $8,635 to be raised by tax? Again, an Australian ballot item. American Red Cross, $500. Brock Community Action in southwestern Vermont, $550. Rutland Mental Health Services, $1,302. VNA and Hospice of Southwest Region, $1,313. RSVP and the Volunteer Center, $100. Southwestern Vermont Council on Aging, $400. Regional Ambulance Service Incorporated, $620. Vermont Adult Learning, $500. Black River Good Neighbor Services Incorporated, $1,000. Vermont Association for the Blind and Visually Impaired, $150. Marble Valley Regional Transit District, $300. Vermont Center for Independent Living, $100. Green Up Vermont, $150. Child First Advocacy Center, $400. Neighbor Works, $500. Okemo Valley Television, $750. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, we'll move to Article 9. Does the town vote $2,500 for the Mount Holly Community Historical Museum to be raised by tax? Australian ballot. Would anyone like to speak to that? Yes. Got it already turned around for you.
He's already turned it for me, and I will try to keep it a tad shorter. I'm Steve Michelle. I'm the board chair for the museum, and just a few things. I'd like to thank excuse me, the select board for the ARPA money they gave the museum to put water into the Perkins House, which allows many of you to use the bathroom when you're on Music on the Green or anything else. And for the AEDs, they gave most of the public buildings, of which we got 2, 1 for each of our buildings. The money you gave us last year was used to paint and repair the Perkins House. And so if it looks nice, you're the reason. The money we're hoping to get this year will be used to take care of the blacksmith shop, to repair the dry rot and to paint the building. We are open during the summer, almost every weekend, so we'd like you to come in and visit. If you want to come at any other time, just check with a board member, and they have a key to the building and turn the alarm off and let you in and give you a tour. And finally, if you need any presents for people, we happen to be selling shirts, hats, sweatshirts, Christmas ornaments, and anything else you're willing to buy. Thank you.
Is there any additional discussion on Article 9? We'll move to Article 10. Does the town of Mount Holly vote to fund the after-school program at the Mount Holly School in the amount of $6,500 in the fiscal year 2024-2025 to maintain state grant funding to be raised by tax? Australian ballot. Anyone want to speak to that? Yes.
I just want to thank you all for your past support for the after-school program. The Mount Holly After-School Program is funded in part by the town of Mount Holly, a 21st century grant and parent fees. It's a Vermont Department of Children and Families licensed program, so we are eligible for state subsidies for families to assist if they should need that assistance. The program operates Monday through Fridays from dismissal to 5. We offer outdoor activities, including fort building, bike riding on the pump track, nature trails, sledding, snow fort building, lots of activities based on student interest. We have an open library program each day, providing opportunities for students to read, create arts and crafts, and engage in multiple STEM activities from racetrack design to a chess club. We offer tutoring and multiple opportunities for students to work together on self-directed projects such as a school newspaper or teaching each other skills like crocheting. In addition, we host visits from the Farm and Wilderness Lake Nineveh Foundation, Endless Creations Pottery in Chester. We've had the University of Vermont STEM ambassadors come join us this year to work with the children, and we're currently hosting a theater workshop as well. The after-school program provides a chance for students across the cohorts and ages to build friendships and collaborate on personal and shared goals. 57 students from kindergarten through 6th grade have enrolled in the program this year. There are approximately 90 K through 6 students. We serve an average of 42 students every day. Of those, 30 of them come every single day, 5 days a week, while others choose specific days based on family needs or interests. The program is available from September to June, and as always, we adapt and introduce programs to best serve the students. It's a vital service for Mount Holly families. The numbers, I think, speak to that. We have lots of working young families in our town. Our town, because of maybe school choice, I'm not sure at the high school level, seems to be gaining students, which is kind of a rarity for this region. And I just ask again that we would really appreciate your support. We're asking for the same amount that we've been asking for the past 10 or 11 years that I've gotten up and given this really similar speech. And we really appreciate your help. It's pretty vital, and thank you.
Any additional discussion on Article 10? Hearing none, we'll move to Article 11. Shall the town of Mount Holly increase the select board from 3 to 5 members, with each additional member to serve 2-year terms pursuant to 17 Vermont statutes annotated 2650, that will be voted on by Australian ballot. Are there any comments on that? Yes.
I realize this is a controversial thing to some people, but first of all, the Vermont League of Cities and Towns did recommend that the boards go to 5 people. It adds diversity to the board, and it just seems like it's a good thing to do. I was on the board for a long time, and 3 people work, but there's a lot more work to do on the board, which can be spread out among the people. Another issue is the open meeting law. It's almost impossible not to break the open meeting law. Two board members meet casually and discuss something, you're breaking the law. Now, normally that does not create a problem, but recently in Norwich, they just had to settle an issue where 2 board members met, and it cost them $100,000 to fix the problem. Norwich is one of the wealthiest towns in the state. They can probably afford that $100,000. I'm not sure about how they can. So it's, I just think it's a positive thing for the town. It's a town to have, allows the town to have more diversity and bring new ideas to the board. Thank you.
Okay. For the record, I think that was Paul Nevin. I don't know if Paul identified himself, but we have that on the tape. And I think what we'll do, I don't know how many people want to speak to this, but I'd like to alternate with a comment for and a comment against, so we can keep some order and have some stability in that. Yes, Paul Barton, I believe.
My name's Paul Barton. I'm a descendant, like many in this room are, of the very first people that came here and cleared this land, put up homes, and have been here for generations of over 200 years. The system of government that they put in place has worked perfectly fine for those 200 years. I don't see where, I don't know how to say this, but people from someplace else want to come and change our system of government, one that has worked for us and our ancestors and our ancestors' ancestors. They knew what they were doing when they came here. Many of them came here to get away from more manipulative forms of government. By being a member of this community and being descended from the people who founded it for generation after generation after generation. There are many people in this room here tonight who all of their ancestors are buried within 30 miles of where we're standing for hundreds of years. The reason people come here is because of what we are and how we are. We're not just neighbors. We're related by blood and marriage, and if not that, by extreme familial contacts. We're a family of people more than just a community. And more than that, we're not just a political entity, but we are a family of people. There's people in this town that have sacrificed everything, that lay in our cemeteries if they were lucky enough for their bodies to come home from wars, to defend this place. One of those happens to be Charles Tarbell. He died in 1862. He never got to vote again. But he did it so you could be here and you could have the right to vote. And your children and your children's children would have the right to vote and have liberty. We should remember them. They were not foolish people. They knew what they were doing. And it's been tested and worked and survived for over 200 years. That means something. We aren't brand new. We aren't just starting. We've been here and we've succeeded and survived. I'll say something else right now. Kia Kolosi Mek Tahoe. My first ancestor here was a Wampanoag Nipmunk. in his language. I just said, I have spoken.
Further discussion on that? That would, Paul was against that, so the next comment should be for, please. Dennis?
So I'm Dennis Devereaux, and I want to mention the open meeting law and a couple advantages to having a 5-member board. We have community members that have stepped up to be appointed to some regional boards, and we thank them. It could be helpful to have a select board member on the Regional Planning Commission, the Solid Waste District, and the Regional Transportation Council. Many towns do. The more important reason to me is an opportunity for improved communication between our select board members. Now, about the only thing they can discuss off the record is scheduling a meeting. And allowing 2 members to talk with a 5-member board is what most towns have, I can assure you. About 10 years ago, my committee in Montpelier made changes to the open meeting law. There was a lot of confusion by select boards and many complaints made to the Secretary of State's office about possible violations from the public, and the press, the newspapers, wanted more access to info. I and a few others did not have a problem with board members having private discussions as long as the issues were also discussed at a public meeting and any decision, any action would happen there.
Any additional discussion? The next one should be against. Is there anyone who would like to speak against the motion? Mr. Steve Michelle.
Hi, my name's Steve Michelle, and I'd like to speak against the resolution. And strangely enough, both Paul and Dennis are friends of mine, which makes this a little bit of a strange conversation. My basic points are that this is an important issue. It deserves full discussion. No one, before this resolution or this thing was started, asked the select board what they thought. There hasn't been a discussion at select board meetings or anywhere else except here about the issue. And I feel it deserves a further discussion prior to making a change. One of the points that was made in the articles is that we need specialized skill sets on the select board. What we are doing now is the people with specialized skills that have an interest in, pick a topic, is become members of a committee or a group that addresses the issues. The people on the select board have to be involved in a lot of subjects. They don't necessarily have to be grant writers. They don't have to be specialized in other areas. Those individuals can be on committees or groups that specialize in the subject. Thank you.
Any further discussion on that? Yes.
Evening. My name is Dave Venter, and I have been privileged to be on the school board for over 20 years. When I first got on the school board, we only had 3 members, and we ran into problems that have been discussed tonight. So we decided to go to 5 members, which we did after much discussion. For 20 years or over, we've had 5 members on the school board. It has not been politicized, like is the worry of probably several people in this room, And, and to my knowledge, and Kelly can correct me if I'm wrong, it's worked out pretty well. We've both been on the school board for about the same length of time, so I would encourage you to give it a shot without worrying about it.
Any additional comments, discussion? There aren't people flocking to the microphone, so I'm not too concerned right now about alternating the plus and the minus. Fra, I think your hand was up first.
Yes, sorry, I'm losing my voice here, folks. Good evening, I'm Francis Devine, and my wife Carol and I have been taxpayers here in Mount Holly and supporters of Mount Holly since 1972. First, I would like to thank the current members of the Select Board for the time and effort they put into in running our town. If I were to guess, each member probably puts in a minimum of 20 hours per month and more in doing this job. That alone makes me think this is a good reason to expand the Select Board membership. However, there are other reasons why we should vote for the members of for 5 members. And one is Vermont's open meetings law, which has been mentioned already many times before tonight, which has stringent requirements for government boards and commissions. As an example, when 2 members of our Select Board meet, that is considered to be a quorum. In fact, even if 2 members of the Select Board happen to meet in a social setting, and this is mentioned in the various regulations, according to the stipulations of the open meetings law, they should not discuss any town business. So anytime 2 members of the Select Board meets, this is considered to be a formal meeting and must be adhered to by the following rules. The meeting must have an agenda. It must be warned generally 48 hours in advance, and the advance public notices must be placed in 3 designated locations. How this impacts the work being done by the Select Board? There are times when it might be useful for the board members to do what could be called policy work to develop solutions for an issue faced by the town. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice here. In our current configurations, each of these meetings would have to follow the open meetings law mentioned earlier. That is clearly not very efficient. We also want to avoid what happened, and it was mentioned earlier too, in the town of Norwich, where one individual raised an objection to the fact the town was not following the open meetings law. By electing a 5-member board here in Mount Holly, this unfortunate and costly, as mentioned earlier, circumstance would likely not occur. Please cast your vote in favor of expanding the Select Board to 5 members. Thank you.
Bob, I think you had your hand up.
Hi, I'm Bob Herbst, and I'm not going to speak for or against. What I do want to say is that the job of the Select Board has become increasingly difficult over the years, as it is for any government board. And all I want to say is we are fortunate in this town that we have a Select Board of very dedicated people who do the best for this town that they know how. It's up to you to vote your conscience as to whether you think it should be a 3 or 5-member board. But what I'd like you all to do right now is to thank the current board for the great job that they do for us.
Additional discussion? Yes. Steve.
Hi, my name is Steve Hazelton. I've been a member of this town for about 7 years. Moved from the big city of Rutland, and we chose to come to Mount Holly specifically because I knew a lot about Mount Holly. I want to point out to people that this ballot item has been proposed for one very simple reason, and that is that in the town governance, It is becoming and will become even more complex, and we're going to really require a lot of challenges. This isn't about the past. This isn't about how the Select Board is doing currently. This is all about the future of town governance. This increasing complexity is not unique to Mount Holly. As mentioned, the League of Cities and Towns is recommending towns consider 5-person boards. Currently, there are 41 municipalities with smaller populations than Mount Holly that govern with 5-person select boards. 41. A lot of our neighbors, large and small, including Andover, Cavendish, Chester, Clarendon, Proctor, and Weston, have 5-person boards. This is about getting the resources that we need to handle these complex issues. We can deal with it, we can move forward, and again, I want to thank the current Select Board for doing the great job. This is about what we need to move forward in this town. Thank you very much.
Well, I guess there is additional discussion on this. I see some hands. Millicent?
Hi, I'm Millicent Johnson. Steve, thank you for bringing up the fact that this has not been discussed at a select board meeting. Would it be inappropriate for me to ask if someone from the select board would be willing to speak about this issue so that we know where you're coming from?
Well, I guess that's really up to you guys and whether you think it's appropriate, inappropriate.
You're set? I'm set, yeah. I think the board's set.
The board is set, does not wish to respond directly to
Not
that.
at this point in time.
What's that?
Not at this point in time.
Not at this point. The board would choose not to respond at this point. Okay, thank you. There was another hand back there. Okay. Nancy?
Thank you. Nancy McKagan. I too would like to thank the Select Board for the work that they do, the time they put in, the dedication they have to our town. I'm from away, but I've been a proud Vermont taxpayer and citizen for 49 years, and it hurts to feel that I'm from away all the time. This isn't an issue about who lives here and who's from away. I've always worked under the radar. People don't know me. But these are common sense issues. This would provide more flexibility. If a board member experiences a work issue that needs more time away from the select board, an illness, or to be able to go to a family member's play or something, it just increases the flexibility and the participation. We're never going to get young people involved if they're afraid to because of the workload. But to know that their back will be covered if they have an emergency, that's a real plus. We're all getting old. Just look at the faces here. We need some young people here to put their voices in. This is their town too, and it's all the people's town. I strongly support, and it's been endorsed by many members of the town, a 5-member board. Thank you.
Yes, Mark.
Hi, everybody. Mark Miller. I'm honored to serve as one of your justices of the peace, and I'm not going to speak for or against it. What I am going to say is I think it's sort of coming up as a little bit of a surprise without enough information, and a few people have said that. I agree with both sides of the discussion. There are definite benefits to 3, and these 3 have been awesome. There are definite benefits to 5. I will say that in the years that I've lived here, we have only once in all of my town meetings ever had a contested vote for a select board. Nobody's running, so we can increase it to 5, but who's going to fill the spots? What's their agenda? What are we voting for? I think we don't have enough information right now to make an intelligent decision on expanding the board if we don't know who wants to fill the spots. I would like to think there would be at least 4 people running so that we could actually have a debate and make informed decisions about the future of our town. I nominate Sue for queen. And that's my 2 cents. Thanks.
Further discussion? Yes, Chad.
Chad Farr. I've been part of the town for about 3 years now. I agree with the last comments that were just made. I don't think there's really enough information yet, and it does feel like it's kind of come on pretty quickly. I didn't really hear much about it, and then it's like all of a sudden we're making a vote on something that's pretty serious. I really do believe that this should have more time for people to feel it out. I've heard a lot of people for it, and maybe more against it, but I think that's maybe where I am in the community. I know more people that are probably local, since I'm from the next town over and my family's been around a long time, and they all kind of don't like to change, as we might have heard tonight. But yeah, I really do. I think we ought to look into this more before we make this decision, because it's something that we're going to have to all live with. So as a community, I think we should all get together and discuss this further. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak to this? Yes.
Hello, I'm Keith Hawkins. Most of you know me. As Paul had said, my ancestors have been here longer than I'll ever know. And I'm really sick of one major argument that's occurred in this town for probably the past 15 years, heavily, and that's the you're from there and not here. As a local who has been from here my whole life and had a major family here, we are not against the people coming to our community. We love people to embrace the wonderful things that we have here. The problem is when people come and try to change our government to make them act as where they have come from. They're not embracing here now, they're trying to change here. And quite frankly, we love here, it's a beautiful place. Why would you want to change it? Now, I do understand some of the concerns of issues with the open meeting law and also talking about the burden, issues that are coming up with the complexities of local government. I don't recall any circumstance where our 3-person board has had an issue that would make this arise. Now, there was one instance recently, which was a very tragic situation where they seemed to pick up momentum from the certain group that was pushing for this. And not only am I very disgusted with that group for the takeoff and why they did this, I feel it's wrong, but I feel like it was just another way for a certain group to push their agenda, and I don't think that's necessary. And I feel, as someone that's been here, I welcome people. My business is based around second homeowners. I love people to come here. It's a great place. I love my family being here. I don't plan on going anywhere. But don't come here and say you love it so much and you've paid taxes for all these years and then try to change what we have. Don't change what's been working for all these years. And thank you to our wonderful select board.
Another comment? I see, yes.
My name is Barbara Hazelton. I've lived in Mount Holly for about 7 years. I'm not an old-timer. I'm not a native. But I think everybody should be informed and vote with facts instead of with emotion. There are a lot of facts, pro and con, in last month's chit-chat and this month's chit-chat, February and March. One thing that people could read if they haven't already, where you can get more information about what is going to be happening that select boards have to deal with. There is on page 15 of the chit-chat that just came out, the March chit-chat, there is a link to an article in the Vermont Digger that is explaining why there are why 5-person select boards are being recommended by the League of Cities and Towns. And it's a factual article. It's not about emotions or tradition, which are great. And it's lovely that Mount Holly has so much tradition. It's one of the things that makes Mount Holly. But there are things that are going to be happening that could be problems if we don't prepare. So if you get a chance before you vote, please go to that link. It's about 5 lines up from the bottom of page 15, and you can get some facts. Thank you.
Additional comments to Article 11? Okay, hearing no one else rising to speak to Article 11. This is like going, gone, right? Okay, so we'll move on to Article 12. Now, Article 12, it's to transact all other necessary and proper business. As I had mentioned earlier, remember, this is a town meeting. So I would consider that it would be stretching the boundary a bit to just move into discussion of a school bond. I had mentioned earlier, one of the ways that we can do that is I would entertain a motion to suspend the rules to allow discussion of school issues, including the bond, in addition to other necessary and proper business under Article 12. It's your meeting, so you can determine. This would be a motion to suspend the rules. It would need a 2/3 vote to carry. So moved. Second. So moved by Mark Miller, seconded by John Perry. Okay, so the motion then is that we are going to suspend the rules to allow discussion under Article 12, so not only of necessary and proper business pursuant to the town meeting, but also for school business, which would include also the school bond. It needs 2/3 to pass. All in favor say aye. Opposed? So that's an easy one. I think I can rule that that's passed. And by the way, I thank everyone for the civility and the fact that I haven't had to use the gavel that Diana has so nicely, Carol has so nicely made available to me. So we're in Article 12, so we'll have comments, discussion on necessary proper business, which will include the school. So who would like to lead off? Yes.
Yeah, I'm Dennis Turco. I lived here in Mount Holly all my life, so has my family. I'm here to talk about everybody wants money for the school, they want money for the library, and we got no money for the roads. The roads in town of Mount Holly have been bad, and our road over there is really bad, and the bridge has been unspeakable for the last 4 or 5 years. I called the state of Vermont to find out what I could do because I wasn't getting anywhere with the town as far as fixing the bridge. The state told me that if it was a hazard, that I have the right to notify them, and they have 30 days to get back to me to be fixed. I never heard nothing. They signed the paper, I delivered the paper to the town, and under the state law, I have a right to sue them, take them to court. I don't want to do this, but I do want the roads fixed. And I want to know why our roads have been not taken care of for the last 3 or 4 years like they have been. I asked the select board this. I also asked the select board to get back to me on this letter. The state told me to write this letter. The state told me what to put in it. And the state told me the law to put in it. They have it. And if they didn't get back to me in 30 days, I have a right to take them to court. I don't want to go to court. I don't want the town to pay for lawyers' fees. I just want the bridge fixed. It's simple. Get rid of the dirt you put in front of it. Let the water off the bridge. There's no drains in the bridge. And our roads are not being taken care of like they should be. And I asked the town to consider this letter that's in front of them and to get back to me about this bridge. Thank you.
Does anyone else want to share anything under Article 12, town or school related? Mark?
He's back, still Mark Miller. This time I'm talking as a grumpy old man. I sort of want to just tell a story. I don't think anybody is happy about the school budgets and the bonds and how much they are. It's a lot of money. And as somebody else pointed out, there's a lot of older people here living on fixed incomes, and any rise to our property taxes is not exactly the most exciting thing to happen in the world. When I was a junior and senior in high school, I was a student representative to the school board in what at the time was one of the 10 richest zip codes in the United States. And during my junior and senior year, I'm not going to tell you when that was, but it was in the last century, there was a bond to put an oil burner in. That was a newfangled thing back then because we had coal. And all the people in the town, as their kids aged out and they became empty nesters, voted us on an austerity budget 2 years in a row, my last 2 years in high school. And during those 2 years, students were taken out of study hall to shovel coal to heat the building. And I vowed, when I was 17 years old, that I would never be the grumpy old man that would deprive a child in education. There are a lot of old people in this room. There are also a lot of kids. And I'm not going to be the one that's going to vote no so that the kid has rain dripping on their head during 4th grade class. Is education funding broken in the state of Vermont? Absolutely. No doubt about it. But we're not going to fix that here. What we can fix is make sure that our kids have a safe, clean, warm place to go to school and be educated, because without education, we are no longer a society.
Yes. Chad.
Chad Farr. Yeah, the sticker shock on the numbers is pretty high, you know, and it's gonna add a little bit of money to our taxes and things, and it's, you know, it's a little rough, but like it was said, you know, we've got 3 kids in the school, and as you can see, you know, the music's like right there in the gymnasium. It's kind of inefficient rather, and it's kind of sloppy, and takes a lot of time for the teachers to do things. There's a lot of issues that are happening, like the roof's leaking, and you know, we got to share this with Ludlow. That doesn't feel very good either. But you know, it's important though. Like these are the guys that are, if they stay here, they're going to be taking care of this town, you know, and they need a place where they can grow. And the state's putting a lot more. You know, you look at the special ed and the rooms kind of separated out into little cubbies, the nurses in a closet, you know, I mean, sounds like a lot, but if we hold out on this and we don't do it, like it's not going to get any less or any easier to accomplish these goals, and it's not going to get any less expensive to accomplish these goals. So I'm for it pretty strongly. I'd like to see the town, you know, come behind the school and support the community that way. And I think the kids deserve it. This is a really good school. I mean, we've got some really talented people here that are doing an excellent job, in my opinion. I've been at both Ludlow and here with my son, and I'm very impressed with this place. It's a great place, and I really hope that the town gets behind it and helps support it. Even though it is a little hard on us money-wise, like, you know, there's lots of things in this community to invest in, and this is one of the most important things. Thank you.
Yes, Paul.
As someone who attended the Belmont School when I was 5 years old and learned to read before I was formally in the first grade, I'd like to say something to the younger people here. Those, by younger, I mean the parents of the children here. Thank you, first of all, for bringing your families here to raise them in this environment. One of the things you will not see until your children are adults, growing up in this environment gives them a special quality that most other people don't have. They become rather self-confident about their own abilities and are willing to just move ahead and do things. Your children will be exceptional to those in the rest of society. Again, you won't see it until they're adults and you're old like I am. But this environment is a very, I don't know what the word is, I started to say challenging, but I don't mean challenging in a negative manner. It's a educating environment. These kids will learn to be able to walk through the forests and never worry about what's going on, because they'll be absolutely confident in their ability to live in that environment. And when they get out in the bigger, wilder world, they won't be intimidated. They'll be able to move right along. This is a major educational environment outside of the schools also. And again, I will thank you all for bringing your children here, and your children will eventually thank you also.
Want to speak? Come on. Do you need help with the mic?
No.
Okay. And just let us have your name, please.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Oliver Ellis, and I go to 5th grade at Mount Holly School. And I really think that the bond issue is really important to think about, and I really want to, mention to voters and people who might be thinking about this that it's really important for the kids who go here to get what they need. Mount Holly is a really special place and a really special learning environment, and I know for a fact that a lot of people love our school, and that our school has made a lot of has and will educate a lot of people. And so I want to say that I think that it's a really important issue I think that everyone should consider voting yes, because the school really needs it. For kids to get what they need a secure environment and a place where they can do their best. And say that a teacher retires or something, and we have really great staff at our school, but I think that when looking for someone to hire, they're gonna look for someone. People are gonna want to work in a school with a bigger space, and also new families moving here. They're gonna want to put their kids in the best school, and I think that we need to, be proactive and address the needs that have come up. It's not only just the addition that's in the bond. There's a lot of crucial repairs that need to be done, as soon as possible, or things aren't, or we've already put it on hold for a long time, and they need to be addressed. As for the addition, I think that that's also really vital, because the nurse's office back there, it's literally the sound booth for the stage. The math specialist room right there in the gym is practically a closet. There's a lot of spaces for OT and PT. Those are state-mandated programs, but the state doesn't fund them at all. So we need to come up with the money to fund them and give them the spaces that they need. There's a lot of students at our school, including myself, who benefit from those programs. And there's a lot of students at our school who benefit from special ed programs. They've had to cut out of our cafeteria spaces to, make space for we don't even have, not only do we have closets for some things, we don't have like rooms for things, some things at all. They're little, you know, like sectioned off parts of the cafeteria. And so I want to tell everyone that as a student at Mount Holly School, I really value the fact that people are considering this bond issue, and I fully support the people who vote yes, and thank you.
Yes, Mark.
Hey folks, how are you? Mark Turco here, Select Board. Hey, I want to comment on Branch Brook Road and the bridge. Two things. Prior to the letter coming in, the bridge was inspected by the state and approved safe, passable, no issues. After we received the letter, we also had the state come down, re-inspect it, and the recommendation the state had for Branch Brook Bridge was to ditch the edges for water drain off, which the road foreman did. And the road foreman did reach out to the individual by phone and talked to him over the situation and went through the state inspection and the follow-up inspection. So I just wanted to make sure that was clarified to everybody. So the board did do their due diligence to make sure the bridge was safe and accommodating for passage. The other side of it is any town out there right now is going through a tough scenario with roads. We've had 4 mud seasons this year and a ton of rain. So I apologize. The roads are rough, they're rutted, they're bumpy, they're muddy, but it's not just Mount Holly. And our town crew does a great job maintaining our roads.
We had a hand back there. Is that you, John? Yes, John.
I'd like to speak for a moment with regards to the school budget, particularly the capital spending. I guess I'd like to speak and say, I wish they had broken down the improvement projects for the Mount Holly School, delineating in a separate budget item for repair of the heating system and repair or addition to the building. And I would have thought that they would have done the same thing in Ludlow. We have all heard on the news and in the papers about the impending tax adjustment we're all going to get hit with. And depending on who you talk to or get it from, we're going to be hit by a tidal wave, or it's going to be a bit uncomfortable. Okay, for me, it's an awful hard sell to allocate enough money in capital improvements that are equal to your annual operating budget, particularly when you're looking at this unknown hit that's coming to our property taxes. I wish they would have broken it down so each of us in our own mind could have prioritized it and picked our level of acceptance to fund it. But right now, the way it stands is we vote it all or we vote it none. And that's a real shame. Thank you.
We have another comment. Probably more. Alex, come on up.
Hi, everyone. My name is Alexandra Yester. I don't know how I'm going to vote on the school bond. I have questions, and I don't know if there's someone here tonight who can answer them. One of those is exactly the point that was just raised about the increase in property taxes that we've been hearing about for the last few months, that they were going to go up by about 20%. Is this increase that we would be expecting if we vote yes on the bond, is that part of that 20% or is it on top of it? It isn't clear to me, and it is a question that I have, so if there's someone who wants to maybe answer it up here who knows, I think that that would be helpful for people to know as part of everyone's thinking about this. The second question I have is about an article I read in Vermont Digger just a few days ago about Article 127. Or Act 127. So according to Act 127, there's a different way of proportioning the money in the state of Vermont. It's a change to the equalization formula, pretty much. And based on, they had an interactive map. And based on that interactive map, Ludlow and Mount Holly Township is supposed to get a higher share of funding from the rest of the state. Then it's in the highest, in the percentage, or rather of the townships or school districts, which is supposed to get the highest benefit the most from this new act. How does that affect this bond? Does that mean there's more money coming in that might change it? Is there anyone who knows? Because I'd love to hear this, and I'm sorry that I missed the informational meeting. Maybe these things were discussed, but it would be so great to have this information as we all make this very important decision, because I think we all care about the younger families in the town and the kids in this town, and we all want to do best by them. We also have to do it within our means. Thank you.
Dave Venter had his hand up, and I guess you'd like to speak at this, Dave.
Again, Dave Enner, I'm on the school board, but I'm not speaking for the school board right now because I really can't. But to try to answer some of the questions and solve some of the mystery, the school budget and the bond issue are two separate issues. They're not the same. You'll be voting on each of them separately, okay? The budget, the state has some very convoluted formulary, as you might guess. This past year, Act 127 was passed. That did change the way the student count was weighted. In years past, special ed kids and other kids were weighted all the same. They were one student, or whatever. This year, there was a weight given depending on poverty, special ed, a lot of other items. In the case of Mount Holly, we benefited from that weighting. Therefore, we got some relief from the monetary side. On the budget side, it does look like it's going up by, I don't know, 15 or 18%. However, if you check the tax rate line, we stay the same or it's reduced by about 1 penny. It should be $1.43 or thereabouts. Last year it was $1.43 or thereabouts also. So although the budget looks like it's gone up, the actual hit to your bottom line is not true. So the bond issue, I'll address that a little bit. I did vote for both items. We as a board have kicked the can down the road, I don't know for how many years, needing to get improvements, this, that, or the other thing, and the chickens had come home to roost. Unfortunately, it happened at a year when inflation has gone crazy and it's hitting us between the eyes. But there are certain items and on the bond side of it that are really need to be done, even in a mandatory way. On the budget, the other thing to consider is the common level of appraisal. And David can probably tell me what that all means, but that basically the housing, the grand list, and how that affects The school budget, I'll never know, but the state puts that into the equation. So, at any rate.
Yeah.
Kelly?
Yeah, no, I'm gonna come right on up.
Did I say anything wrong?
No, I just want to add my 2 cents. I like to talk. I'm a teacher. I talk all day long. Let me continue this. So a couple of things. I want to answer
I'm
your
sorry,
question,
can
I
you-
think.
Just for the record, you are,
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Kelly Tarbell. So the current budget that you'll be voting on tomorrow, the budget piece of it, not the bond, does have the equivalent of the first bond payment in it, because either we need to replace the boiler because it's not going to last another year. I've been on the school board 20-something years, and we've been Band-Aiding that thing back together the entire time. So either we're going to pay for a boiler or we're going to make a first bond payment, okay? So that amount of money is already in that budget. As people were talking, I just took little thought notes, so if they're all over the place, I apologize. I am a resident of Mount Holly. I am from away, but I've been here since like I was that tall. My kids went to Mount Holly School. They grew up. They graduated from Black River. One of them lives at home because that's all she can afford, and one of them lives in Maine because he can't afford to come home. He would live here in a heartbeat if he could afford it. That is not a school board issue, unfortunately. That is a bigger state issue. And I think that is where a lot of this problem is coming. And I feel like it's really unfortunate that because taxes are crazy, because we don't have a lot of young families, because we don't have young families having children, our schools are smaller, and that's a hard pill to swallow, and I get it. But unless we have good schools and good communities and we keep them active, people aren't going to want to move here, and it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. And that's my soapbox. Like Dave said, I'm not speaking for the board. I'm speaking as a resident. We have very little control in the school board budget, however. Things like special ed are mandated. We obviously have to pay our teachers a competitive wage. There is very little in our budget that we actually can change and make difference on. It's just fact. If you have a home, you know that your budget is your budget. You have to pay your bills. So does the school. The bond, we initially started out with about $16 million. That was obviously not going to happen. We tried to narrow it down for safety and security purposes. Obviously, a boiler fits into that. Some things, schools are sometimes dangerous places, and Mount Holly is not going to always be immune to those things, so we have to be prepared. When we voted a few years ago to be one district with Ludlow, this is part of the consequence of that, unfortunately. We wanted, well, I'm not going to say we wanted, because I certainly didn't want to, but we voted as communities to close our school and join as one district. And the belief at the time, and I hope it's still the belief, is that we did that to save our elementary schools. And so we don't have a high school. We don't have control over any of that money that we're paying tuition to. And it's not saved us a dime. So, and I think that's all that's on my list. If people have other questions, I'll hang out for a while afterward, and so that we don't have to take up the whole time, but I'll answer what I can of the school bond and the school budget. And like Dave said, he voted for both of them, and when we were in board meetings, and so did I, and so I'll do my best to answer them.
and thank you for saying you'll stay around to answer questions at the end. Do we have any other comments, questions, things to be brought up under Article 12? Peter, did you?
Can I make a comment that is peripherally related to the town?
I think peripherally is okay.
Well, it might be stretching it a little bit. but
And
not
then
too much.
we'll rule you out of order.
Whoop. I'm Peter Smith, and recently I found out about a bill in the legislature
which for our wildlife would be an absolute disaster. It's Senate Bill 520, no, let me get that right, 258. And what it would do would take management of our fish and wildlife away from the department, away from the biologists that, you know, if any of you are deer hunters, you know when you go to the check station, they take a tooth out of your deer. Well, why do they do that? They do the same with the carcasses of fur-bearing animals, also with bear. They get sent to a lab in Montana for aging, then they come back to the department. So the department knows where the animal was killed, what it was, its sex, they now know its age, and this allows them to make scientific decisions on what the season will be for the next year. And the proposal in 258 is to take all of that away from the department and turn it over to the legislature to make the decisions about our fish and wildlife. I think it would be an absolute disaster. I talked briefly with Logan before the meeting. He was not aware of the bill yet because it's still in the Senate. It hasn't gotten to the House. But I know the concern of hunters that I've talked with. The feeling is that if it becomes a bill that gets passed and you have 180 people making decisions about our fish and wildlife who have no background in the biology of fish and wildlife, that's not a good system. So, as I say, Logan was not familiar with the bill yet, if you wanted to get in touch with him, he did give me his email address, so check with me after the meeting and I can give you that so you could send him an email, let him know how you feel about it. Thank you.
Any other necessary and proper business to transact? Yes, Dennis.
So Dennis Devereaux, and I'm just going to respond to Peter a little bit. Peter, about 20 years ago, the legislature, for years, had control of the deer herd in how deer was handled. And they weren't the experts, so they took it away and gave it to the Fish and Game Board, the Fish and Wildlife Board. So the proposal in the Senate, as far as I know, allows most commissions and boards are appointed by the governor appoints several members, the House does, and the Senate does. And this is how it's probably going to be handled. I don't think it's probably going to pass in any form. But the idea was that the three groups would come together and appoint, and they would, or the hope is that they were going to appoint people that know what they're doing, that have to do with biology and fish and wildlife. I don't want to see it politicized at all, but my understanding is that if it goes through the Senate, and it's a long way, and if it doesn't get passed really soon, it won't make crossover anyway. So the chances of it going too far, and it might come back, next year. But my understanding was it was to allow them to appoint the members, because right now a lot of them are the governor's appointments only, and because they don't all agree all the time. I mean, you get that, right? So I don't think it's anything too much to worry about, but we have 3 Rutland County senators that all have a legislative email address, first initial, last name, ledge.state.vt.us. So they're glad to hear from you, I'm sure.
Yes, Peter.
I'll try and be brief. Just as far as the senators are concerned, they have all said they're voting against it. So that's a definite plus. But the concern is that here you have our wildlife, those that get hunted, those that get trapped, and those that don't, managed by people. The biologists all have at least a master's degree in wildlife biology. The others basically, technicians and so forth, basically a bachelor's degree. And to turn that over, the management over to, as I say, 180 people who basically don't have that background to be able to make decisions about the seasons and lack of seasons, whatever it may be, is just, whether, one thing I will say, they changed the number of members on the Fish and Wildlife Board. The current situation is 1 member per county. For whatever reason, the people who were trying to get this bill passed cut that down to 12. Why? Who are they trying to eliminate? So it's just a disaster of a bill. And as I say, our senators have said they are definitely going to vote against it. I had sent an email to Logan, but it went to the wrong address, and so he didn't get it, unfortunately. I now have his right address here, and he said he would look up the one I already sent, and hopefully he will be voting against it as well, although at this point, since he wasn't really familiar with it, he obviously didn't commit himself too much.
And are there any other comments with regard to Article 12, necessary and proper business? Seeing nothing? And, whoa, hold it.
You had to know it was. I'll go back to the school board stuff. I'm a New York State CPA. I used to do SEC filings, 10Ks, 10Qs, 8Ks. I had to take and read the school board report a number of times to try to understand it and gather information. So my comment is to the school board members is that they try to revamp the report so it's understandable. I believe the problem is they have not, unless you went to the meetings, you're really going to have to dig to find out why they're increasing the school board budget and what may or may not be in the bond issue. The information is not easy to find or understand, and I believe they have missed a golden opportunity to explain why they increased the school board budget $1.5 million and how much in taxes it's going to cost the town rather than necessarily the tax rate. And then the issues that why and what, except on the slides, they're going to use the bond for. Without that, I don't believe any of us can make an intelligent decision. Thank you. And I think I'm the last.
I was going to say, rather than picking up the gavel and gaveling things closed, I'll speak slowly, give everybody a chance. Hearing nothing, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. I think we can consider that moved and seconded. Anybody opposed? Then we're done. Thank you all.